Thank you so much for coming out to Niagara Falls. This has been absolutely amazing. And anyone that's surprised you with some, they brought a piece of your work maybe to get signed that you've, forgotten about over the years? Because I think that happens a lot for people like yourself.
I'm sure it happened, but see, I've already forgot it.
Now, out of that, long list of things that you've done, anything that's near and dear to your heart, that's if you had to kind of narrow it down and pick a favorite, do you think you could do so?
Payday.
How about Cocoon, maybe?
That was fun, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
The Thing? Better than
The
Cocoon?
Thing?
Yeah, Thing.
It was okay.
That was okay.
I don't get the big hype over that one. I mean, I know people love that movie. Okay. I go to war to protect your right to do that. I don't have to understand it.
And you also were involved with a film that, we were just saying, it's kind of hard to find these days. They did the spin-off Ewok movies with Star Wars, and you were in...
I bet that's hard to find.
It is very tough to find. I think Disney is trying to hide that from...
It wasn't Disney. It was...
well, back as Lucasfilm.
It was two kids wrote it and produced it and directed it. Well, I think George Lucas might have produced it. But the kids, what the hell was their name? The Wheat Brothers. Mm-hmm. The Wheat Brothers. And I don't know what else they did besides direct, but they should have stayed doing that. But they were nice enough kids. It'd be like if I was to take a job driving a rocket ship. Shit, I don't know how to do that.
And being a part of the giant phenomenon of Star Wars, was that a little exciting at the time to kind of step into that, or were you not really familiar with that world?
I didn't pay any attention to that. I was working with a bunch of people that I had grown up with. Mm-hmm. All them little guys from Wizard of Oz, all the little munchkins.
Yeah.
Every one of them was on that job, and I got to know them and love them and appreciate being with them, and it was a lot of fun.
And Warwick Davis as well?
Yeah, that little guy. He's a pretty good example of how tough you can be when life isn't that kind to you. He was a victim of, what do you call it, spina bifida? And hell, he always had a smile on his face. He was a sweet little guy. Mm-hmm. It was a pleasure to be around. And he's a good example of humanity.
Mm-hmm. I think people have noticed, because I know he still works with the Star Wars movies, and he manages to make appearances here and there. So he's
good for him.
That's really good. And how about doing a movie like Cocoon with Ron Howard as a director back in the day? Because he went on to do so many great things. What was it like working with Ron Howard on Cocoon?
Well, we got done with it. We got by with it okay.
Yeah?
He was very young. And he's a very, very gifted kid when it comes to photographic composition and those important facets of filmmaking. He's truly gifted.
Mm-hmm. All right. Well, we have I know a bunch of audience members out there that have some questions for Wilford. So if you have a question, just go ahead and put up your hand, and we'll get to you. So do we have any questions from the audience at all? Okay, let's go over to you.
Yes, sir. Say it out loud.
Any memories working with Charles Bronson?
Oh, he was a pal of mine. Yeah, Charlie Bronson. He was an amazing guy. At one time, for quite a while, he was #1 box office. And I think that's because of you ladies. I think the ladies are the ones that put him there. Had daydreams about being around him. He wasn't one of the brightest lights in the chandelier, but he was one of the sweetest guys I was ever around in my life.
And working on a movie like The Thing, there was recently they did a remake of it. Did you happen to see the new version of the film?
No.
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 Any thoughts on maybe someday what if they decide to remake Cocoon, or maybe we should leave that one?
Why would you do that?
I mean, we said the same thing about Thing, and then they did that. So
What?
with the Thing, we said the same thing, and then they remade it. We're in this era now where they're remaking all these.
Anybody here see the last one? Anybody really interested in seeing it? No.
Yeah.
There's your answer to that.
All right,
kind of
there we go.
bullshit.
So don't touch the classics. All right, other questions from the audience? No? Okay, go ahead. Murder in Space.
Oh gosh, we made that in Toronto actually, and I can prove to you right now I don't have Alzheimer's because you're going back 50 years. I worked with a lot of young guys, kid Stephen McCaddy, and I remember that's when I became kind of attached to you Canadians. I was never as cold in my life as I was one day when I was walking down the street in the winter in Toronto, and I saw a guy with a big fur coat, and he was warm as toast. And I said, "Tell me about that coat." And he said, "Well, it's made out of Canadian otter." And I went into a furrier and I said, "Make me a coat out of Canadian otter." And I have it today, and it's the warmest, most wonderful coat I ever had in my life.
Wow. Any other questions from the audience? No? Okay, we got it.
Well, it's not necessarily your favorite movie that you worked on. What was it like working with John Carpenter?
What was it like working with John Carpenter?
Oh, John Carpenter's a wonderful man. He's a sweet, kind, loving guy, and so talented. And I go a long ways to work with him.
Now, as an actor like yourself, who has been doing this for so many years, any advice you would have for somebody getting into the industry nowadays?
Don't. No, in all seriousness, I have kids that come to me and ask me about that, and my counsel to anyone, young people, is first, prepare yourself to live in this world. Prepare yourself with a profession of some sort that is in demand, because you as an actor, however gifted you may or may not be, are not in demand. And if you make a living at it, you're one of about 2%. So please take the time, put forth the effort to get yourself a profession that you can rely on when you need to make a living. That'd be my counsel.
Wow. And for you, when you got into the industry, who was a big influence in your life? Were there anybody?
Robert Duvall.
Robert Duvall.
Yeah.
And did you grow up as well, like watching his work, and is that what kind of inspired you a little bit?
No, I was in this business when I met him, but I was what I laughingly refer to as a stunt man. My biggest stunt was being to work on time.
Yeah.
But I'd fall off the horse and do stuff like that. And I met Bobby Duvall on a show, and we got to be friendly, and as time went along, we got to be good friends. And he's the guy that encouraged me to toss my hat in the ring as an actor. And he said, "You can do this." He said, and you won't have to hit the ground anymore, and it pays a little better. And I thought, well, hell, that makes sense. So I did that, and I didn't work one day for 8 years.
Wow.
Then I learned a trick. This is more counsel for the kids. I learned how to say no. And if you say to one of those high-tone producers, no, now they want you. And here they come. A little more money, a little better dressing room, a little more blah, 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 blah. And if you say no again, here, a little more. Blah, 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 blah. And you wind up making a pretty good living. About like the plumber, neighborhood plumber, and you'll wind up about the same, the end of the trail.
Now, did you have a process at all for you know, getting into these various roles over your career, or are you like a very do you like to study the script and do the research, or how do you approach a new character in a new role?
If I get the job, I just do it. I don't know what that means to prepare.
Well, some people I think they get into the mind of this character. If you're playing a cowboy, you go and work on a ranch for 6 months and really prepare for it, or they're a little more method
Well, I was
than
born
others.
doing that, so that
I mean, there you go. I think you're all set.
comes easy for me. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I think it's bullshit. That's what I think about it.
Yeah, there are some actors out there that'll go to great lengths to get into a character, but
God bless them.
yeah.
Most of them are a little bit boring for me to watch.
Yeah.
People like Anthony Hopkins.
Yeah.
He's a friend of mine. I would crawl over busted glass to watch him work. He's one of the most gifted people I've ever seen in my life. Robert Duvall. Half a dozen people like that. Jack Nicholson. Eastwood, those kind of guys.
Yeah.
Gene Hackman.
And for yourself, what do you like to watch? Do you like films? Are you more of a television guy, or do you?
If a good movie comes along, I'll sit and watch it. I sure will. The best movie I've seen in 25 years is called $1 Million Baby.
There we go. Yeah, we're just talking about Clint Eastwood moments ago. What was it about that movie for you that you love so much?
Well, it was the truth. It has to do with the truth. I'm a sucker for the truth. If you want to tell me that dogs tear open your belly and eat no Alaska, go ahead, but I'm not going to believe it. But when that man walked in there and pulled the plug on that little sweetheart, I did believe it. And it reached me, touched me, and hell, I'll buy a ticket to that anytime.
All right. And before you got into the film industry, you worked briefly, where you're saying, with stunts, and then as an actor. Did you have anything else that you had planned on doing earlier in your life before you found that industry?
Son, I've failed at more things than you can spell.
Like what?
Oh, several business ventures, several jobs. I get fired from a job. I drink too much. You get fired, Get thrown in the jailhouse. You get fired. I'm sure there's somebody in here can identify with that. But, yeah, I did a lot of bartender, bodyguard, bouncer, just kind of an ordinary pissant. Nothing special, nothing unique.
Yeah. And how do you find the industry has changed since you've stepped into it years ago? How is it different now for you?
I don't recognize it anymore. Used to be, well, I think I enjoyed the best part of it. I'll just leave it like that. Technology is what it is. I'm one of those people, I don't necessarily think it's all that great. Give you an example. When I was a kid, I'd go to the Saturday movies, and they always played what they called a serial. The Shadow or the Invisible Man, one of them guys, And I would leave that show house with my little brother on my handlebars on my bicycle, and we were scared shitless of something we never saw. But see, as an audience participant, we had the responsibility and the right to create that in our own mind. And I'll never forget, there's a great big cypress bush on the way home. And I would tell my little brother, as we'd come close to that bush, I'd say, that son of a bitch is in there, I just know he is. Now, what I was seeing and what he was seeing were two different things, But it was in that bush. We knew it was in that bush, and it was scary. Nowadays, you go to a movie, they show you what it is. They show you a slimy rubber dog that eats Fairbanks. Oh, that's it? Oh, okay. No big deal. My best example of that is a little movie I saw years ago that I thought, the way it started, I thought this was going to be a masterpiece movie. And it was about a visitor from outer space. And the way they started the movie was from its point of view. So all the camera work was done from the ground up, and it never got much above hip high or knee high. Mm-hmm. And I said, man, this is clever, and I'm with this little guy, whatever he is, and I had him. I built him. And then they showed me this little rubber doll, called it E.T., and it's the end of it for me. Because they took away from me my privilege to create that for myself. You know, there's a company now called Industrial Light and Magic. They can do marvelous things. And listen, I know probably the lion's share of the people in this audience love and appreciate what they do, and I applaud you for being that way. I just don't. That's all.
Yeah, almost like the imagination is been taken out of it, and it's nowadays. And in your career, is there anybody that you wished you would have worked with or worked with more, looking back?
Oh, I bet there is. But you know, I've been blessed. Mm. I've never been what's called a good actor. I've got away with what I do, and I do the same thing every time. I show up, try not to trip over the furniture, try to remember most of the lines. But I have played in films that are very memorable and of some value, and with some people that are very near and dear to my heart. My best friend in life, I did a couple of movies with a guy named Dick Farnsworth. Anybody know who that was? The movie The Natural. Anybody see The Natural? Well, he was my partner. He was a coach, and they called him Red. And we made that movie right over here in Buffalo at the War Memorial Stadium. And some of my fondest memories as a filmmaker are of that stadium in that city with those people. The little kids would come around, and he was a magnet to little kids. He had a twinkle in his eye and a smile that just attracted them, like the Pied Piper. And we spent the first 2 hours of the day waiting for Redford to get to work because he was always at least 2 hours late. So we had that time on our hands. And these kids would gather around, and my friend Dick Farnsworth, we call him Diamond Dick, he would start shooting a bull with these kids, and it was wonderful. It was joyful, and the things that he got away with were just amazing. You want to hear a story about that? Yeah. One day a bunch of kids showed up with 4-H jackets on. You all know what the 4-H deal is? Agriculture, farm kids. He said, I see you kids are ranch kids, farm kids. Because I was one of them myself. He said, but I see none of you have the little badge on your clover leaf for swine management. No, I'm ready, because he and I got a little routine about that we do. And I know it's coming, but the kids don't. So he says, how many of you kids would like to have a swine to sew on your little clover leaf? Well, they all wanted one. He said, well, I'll give you a riddle. If you solve the riddle, I'll see that every one of you gets your swine for your 4-H jacket. He says, I get my partner Brim, that's me, get my partner Brim to help me, and here we go. If a full-grown pig was to drink a quart of buttermilk before he started, run 2 full miles before he farted, how far could he go before he actually shit? Now there's the dilemma, kids. My pal here has got the answer. Now I'm on. I said, well, kids, before you make such a foolish bet, you need to be on the very spot where the fart was let, as was that farmer by the roadside who saw the pig pass with the buttermilk squirting out of his ass. Now, the further he run, the higher in the air it flew, and of course the dimmer in the side of the farmer he grew, but we know this. He's a real stout pig, because he held his gas and run 2 full miles with a puckered ass. Don't it seem if he keeps his wits, he could go 6 miles before he shits? So there's your answer, see? And they were just overjoyed. And I was too, because he brought pleasure and happiness and silliness wherever we went. You want to hear one more story about that guy? We're over in Buffalo, and we're filming The Natural. Now, there's a scene in The Natural where the team is all in a room, and they got a midget giving a speech to them about the value of winning versus the sorrow of losing. And Diamond and I were sitting out in the War Memorial Armory Hall, and they got a 40-foot motorhome here with a chair in the center, and one over here with a chair in the center, and one is mine and one is his. And we're 40 feet apart. And I started to move my chair over by his. He says, I wouldn't do that, Brim. They'll think you don't like that bus and they'll take it away from you. Okay. So I sat there, he sat there, we were talking back and forth. Now at the time, they were still casting the movie, and they were looking for the part of a beautiful blonde girl, which ultimately went to a girl named Kim Basinger. But prior to that award, they looked at every blonde girl in Hollywood and flew them to Buffalo for interviews and visits and that kind of stuff. And on this day I'm telling you about, there's a girl sitting in a chair over there. It makes a perfect triangle between her, Diamond, and me. 40 feet each way. He says to me, kind of under his breath, he said, Brim, that girl can't take her eyes off of you. And I said, well, it's very strange, but I've noticed the same thing, Diamond. I think she's quite taken with you. No, it's you. No, it's you. So he says, let's find out. I said, okay. Now, I don't know what's coming, but I'm dying to hear because he's just amazing when he improvises. So he says, okay, when that little guy comes out that door, you get around behind him. I'll push him over your back. He'll hit the ground. First thing, hit the ground on the back of his head, and we'll jump on him and beat him to death and throw him in the dumpster outside. Okay? Well, I got one answer. Okay. And he goes through it again. More specifically, what we're going to do to this guy. Well, this little blonde girl sitting over here can't stand it anymore. She says, oh, I'm I'm sorry, but I heard what you said. I love you guys. You can't do that. You're Dick Farnsworth. You can't do that. So now here he goes, you see. He says, well, darling, I'm sorry you heard that. That little guy in there, we've been looking for him, Brim and I, ever since the death march at Bataan. Now, when the death march at Bataan went on, I was like 9 years old, and he was maybe 12. And this little girl had no idea what it was. But he says, that little guy in there was our regimental drummer boy. And he would beat that drum, and he infuriated them damn Japs, and they would mow our boys down with them machine gun bullets, and this little scumbag could run right under all them bullets. He says, and me and Brim been looking for him all these years, and we finally found him here in Buffalo, and we're going to kill him. And she thought that'd be okay. Well, that's about all I know. It ain't much.
Wow. Oh, I feel like we could just share stories for the rest of the panel. This is amazing. How often do you revisit some of these memories? Do you do these type of events quite often at the Comic Con?
No.
Not really?
Have I done 4 of them or 3 or what?
Oh, really? 4? Wow. So how has that experience been for you to come to an event like this and actually, see fans that you're...
This?
Yeah, like to see the fans that your work is...
One of the prettiest place on the planet Earth, right here.
Definitely.
I sit out by the window of the hotel and look at that sight across there, and I marvel at God's handiwork once more. And I am so grateful to be alive and be able to take advantage of a place like this and folks like you.
Thank you.
See, the thing is you people, and a lot more, have allowed me to make a living doing something I kind of enjoy doing. And if I don't have time to stop and visit and say hello and thank you, I'm way too busy. So I'm saying it now. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Thank you. Everybody make some noise for Wilford Brimley. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you for watching the Convention Junkies coverage of the 2018 Niagara Falls Comic Con. Please like, comment and subscribe to see more, and let us know below what you think of this video. If you would like to help us with future projects, please visit our Patreon page.